You grew it. You watered it through the dry spells, protected it from the frost, waited patiently through the whole long season, and then you lost it. Not in the garden, in your own kitchen. If that has ever happened to you, if you've ever pulled something beautiful out of your garden only to watch it go soft or rot or shrivel before you could use it, I want you to know something. It was not your fault. Nobody told you how to store it. And that is exactly what we are going to fix today. Because here is the truth that most gardening books skip right over. Growing the food is only half the job. Storing it correctly is the other half. And it's the half that determines whether all that hard work actually feeds you. Today we are going through 8 of the most common garden vegetables, one by one. And for each one, we're going to cover exactly where it wants to be stored, how long it will keep, and the mistake that quietly ruins it for most gardeners before they even realize something has gone wrong. And I'll tell you right now, one of these mistakes is so common, so widespread, that almost every home gardener is making it. We'll get to that one before the end. Welcome back to the Backyard Pantry. This is the channel for gardeners who want to do more with what they grow. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a video. Let's start with one of the garden's greatest gifts to the home pantry. Winter squash. Butternut, acorn, delicata, spaghetti squash, whatever variety you grow. Winter squash is one of the most naturally long-lasting vegetables that comes out of a home garden. Stored correctly, a cured winter squash can sit in your pantry for 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months of food from a single harvest. That is extraordinary. But here's the catch. Most gardeners harvest their squash and put it straight into storage without doing the one thing that makes long-term keeping possible. They skip the curing. Curing is the process of letting the squash sit in a warm, dry place around 80 degrees if possible for 10 to 14 days after harvest. During that time, the skin hardens, the stem dries and seals, and the squash essentially builds its own protective armor. Without curing, that armor never forms. The skin stays slightly soft, the stem stays slightly damp, and within weeks you'll start to see soft spots developing where you least expect them. Cure your squash first. Always. After squash wants to be stored somewhere cool and dry between 50 and 60 degrees, with good air circulation. Not the refrigerator, never the refrigerator. Cold and damp is the enemy of winter squash. A pantry shelf, a cool spare room, a dry basement corner, these are its natural home. And one more thing, store your squash without stacking. Each squash needs air around it. When they touch, moisture builds up at the contact point, and that's exactly where rot begins. Give them space, check them every few weeks, and a well-cured winter squash will reward you all the way into spring. Now pumpkins? And before you say anything, yes, pumpkins are edible. Yes, they are worth storing for the kitchen. And yes, most people are storing them completely wrong. Pumpkins need curing too, the same warm, dry period after harvest that winter squash requires. But pumpkins have one additional vulnerability that catches gardeners off guard every single year: the stem. If the stem breaks off during harvest or handling, the pumpkin's clock starts ticking immediately. That stem is not decorative. It is the seal that keeps moisture and bacteria out of the flesh. A pumpkin without its stem will begin to rot from the top down, often within weeks, even in perfect storage conditions. So when you harvest, cut the stem cleanly with a sharp knife or pruners. Never snap or twist it off. Leave at least 2 inches of stem attached, and handle pumpkins like the delicate things they actually are, even though they look tough. After curing, store pumpkins in the same cool, dry, well-ventilated conditions as winter squash, 50 to 60 degrees. No stacking, no refrigerator. A properly harvested and cured pumpkin will keep for 2 to 3 months, sometimes longer. That's a lot of soups, pies, and roasted pumpkin waiting for you on the other side of winter. Leeks, one of the most underappreciated storage vegetables in the home garden, and one of the easiest to get wrong. Here is what most gardeners do with leeks they're not using immediately. They wash them, trim them, and put them in the refrigerator. And within a week, those leeks are limp, slightly slimy, and starting to smell. Here is what they should do instead. Leave the roots on. Don't wash them. Don't trim the green tops. Leeks are still alive when you pull them from the ground, and they want to stay that way for as long as possible. The best short to medium-term storage for leeks is to stand them upright in a container with an inch or 2 of water at the bottom, like cut flowers and keep them somewhere cool. A cool garage, an unheated porch, or the coldest corner of your refrigerator with the roots in a damp paper towel all work well. Stored this way, leeks will stay fresh and firm for 2 to 3 weeks. But here's something most gardeners with a large leek harvest never consider. Leeks are one of the few vegetables that can be left right in the ground, well into winter, in most climates. They are remarkably frost-hardy. The ground itself becomes their storage container. Pull them as you need them, and let the garden do the work of keeping them fresh. That is storage working the way nature intended it. Cabbage. Cabbage is one of those vegetables that looks like it should be easy to store. It's firm. It's dense. It has its own protective outer leaves, and yet it is one of the most commonly wasted vegetables in the home garden because of one mistake. Gardeners store it at room temperature. A whole head of cabbage sitting on a kitchen counter will begin to lose moisture. Within days, the outer leaves will yellow and wilt, and within a week it looks like something you'd rather compost than cook. Cabbage needs cold, real cold. The ideal storage temperature for a whole head of cabbage is just above freezing, between 32 and 40 degrees. That means the coldest part of your refrigerator or a cold cellar or unheated garage in winter. And here's the part that surprises most people. Do not remove the outer leaves before storing. Those leaves look rough and slightly battered, but they are doing an important job. They act as insulation, holding moisture in and protecting the tender inner leaves from drying out. Leave them on until you're ready to use the cabbage. Stored correctly in the coldest part of your refrigerator, a whole unwashed head of cabbage can keep for 1 to 2 months. In a cold cellar just above freezing, some varieties will keep for 3 to 4 months. That is a long time for a fresh vegetable. And we haven't even talked about what happens when you ferment it. But that is a whole other video. Turnips, perhaps the most underestimated vegetable in the home garden when it comes to storage, and the most mishandled. The mistake almost everyone makes with turnips is storing them with their greens still attached. It seems natural. They come out of the ground that way. Why change it? Here's why. The greens are still alive after harvest, and they are still pulling moisture and energy from the root. Every day those greens stay attached, the turnip root is losing moisture it needs to stay firm and sweet in storage. Within a week of harvest with the greens on, a turnip that could have stored for months is already starting to shrivel. Cut the greens off immediately after harvest. Leave about an inch of stem, just enough to protect the crown without leaving a long green stalk to draw moisture out. Do not wash them before storing. The soil on the skin is not a problem, it's a protective layer. Wash turnips right before you use them, not before you store them. Store them in a cool, moist environment. A perforated plastic bag in the refrigerator works beautifully, or packed loosely in slightly damp sand in a cool cellar. Stored this way, turnips will keep for 4 to 5 months. And here is the thing about turnips that most people never discover because they never store them long enough. A turnip that has been through a few weeks of cold storage actually tastes sweeter than one eaten fresh from the garden. The cold converts starches to sugars. Patient storage makes them better. Now we come to the vegetables that require the most attention after harvest. Leafy greens, kale, chard, spinach, collards, they all share the same fundamental challenge. They are mostly water. They are still breathing after harvest, and they lose that moisture faster than almost any other garden vegetable. The moment you cut a leafy green from the plant, a clock starts. And most gardeners don't realize just how short that clock can be, or how easily they can slow it down. The most common mistake with leafy greens is storing them dry. A plastic bag of dry kale in the refrigerator will be wilted and sad within 2 to 3 days. The same kale stored with moisture will stay crisp and vibrant for a week to 10 days. Here is what that looks like in practice. After harvest, give your greens a gentle wash in cold water. Spin or shake off most of the water, but not all of it. You want the leaves slightly damp, not soaking wet. Wrap them loosely in a slightly damp paper towel or clean kitchen cloth, then place them in a sealed bag or container in the coldest part of your refrigerator. The moisture in the towel creates a microclimate around the leaves, slowing the rate at which they breathe and lose water. The result is greens that stay genuinely fresh, not just technically edible, for significantly longer. And for kale specifically, there is one more thing worth knowing. kale actually improves with cold. Just like turnips, a frost or a week in cold storage breaks down some of the compounds that give kale its slightly bitter edge and brings out a natural sweetness that makes it far more pleasant to eat raw. Cold storage isn't just preservation for kale, it's improvement. Zucchini, the vegetable every gardener has too much of and somehow never knows quite what to do with. We've talked about preserving zucchini through salt curing in a previous video, but today we're talking about fresh storage. And the mistake here is one that almost everyone makes. They put zucchini in the refrigerator. Now that sounds completely reasonable. It's a vegetable. Vegetables go in the refrigerator, but zucchini is a warm weather crop and it is genuinely sensitive to cold. Below about 50 degrees, zucchini begins to suffer what's called chilling injury. The flesh becomes pitted, waterlogged, and slightly mushy. The skin develops soft sunken spots, and it happens faster than you'd expect, sometimes within just a few days in a cold refrigerator. The best place to store fresh zucchini is somewhere cool but not cold. A temperature between 50 and 60 degrees is ideal. If your kitchen stays in that range, the counter is genuinely fine for a few days. If you do need to refrigerate, store zucchini in the warmest part of the refrigerator, usually the door or the top shelf, and use it within 3 to 4 days. Do not wash it before storing. Do not cut it before storing. The skin is the zucchini's protection. Once you break it, the clock moves much faster. And if you have more zucchini than you can use fresh in a week, that is when you reach for the salt. But that, as we said, is a whole other video. And finally, fresh herbs, the one that surprises people most, because fresh herbs from the garden seem delicate, temporary, something to use immediately or lose. But stored correctly, fresh herbs can stay vibrant and usable for 1 to 3 weeks. The mistake almost every gardener makes is putting fresh herbs loose in the refrigerator. Within a day or two, the leaves are blackened at the edges, limp, and half of them are stuck to the side of the bag. Here is a better way. Treat your fresh herbs exactly like cut flowers. Trim the very bottom of the stems, and stand them upright in a small glass or jar with an inch of water at the bottom. Cover the tops loosely with a small plastic bag, not sealed tight. Just drape gently over the leaves to hold a little humidity around them. Then set them on your kitchen counter or in the refrigerator depending on the herb. And this is the detail that most people don't know. Not all herbs want the same treatment. Soft-leafed herbs like basil hate the cold. Basil in a refrigerator will turn black almost overnight. Basil belongs on the counter, in its little jar of water, away from cold drafts and air conditioning vents. Hardy herbs like thyme, rosemary, and sage, on the other hand, prefer the refrigerator. They like cool and slightly humid, and stored in their jar of water in the refrigerator, they will stay fresh and fragrant for 2 to 3 weeks. Change the water every few days. Trim the stems slightly each time, and these herbs will outlast almost any other fresh produce in your kitchen. Growing your own herbs and knowing how to keep them alive after harvest is one of the quiet pleasures of the backyard garden that you simply cannot buy in a store. We are coming up on the close today, and if you've made it this far, thank you. This is exactly the kind of content we make for you every week. If this video helped you, please share it with a fellow gardener and subscribe so you never miss what's coming next. 8 vegetables, 8 different relationships with temperature, moisture, and time, and now you know them all. Winter squash and pumpkin want cool, dry air and room to breathe, but only after they've had time to cure. Leeks want to stay as close to alive as possible, roots on, unwashed, standing in a little water. Cabbage wants cold and its outer leaves left right where they are. Turnips want their greens cut, their skin left dirty, and a cool, damp corner to rest in. Leafy greens want moisture, cold, and a little patience, and they'll reward you with sweetness. Zucchini wants cool but not cold, unwashed, uncut, and used before the week is out. And fresh herbs want to be treated like flowers, because that's exactly what they are. Every one of these vegetables grew in your garden because you put in the work. Now you have what you need to make sure that work feeds you. All the way through, the guide nobody gave you when you started gardening, you have it now. If this video was helpful, leave a comment below and tell us which storage tip surprised you most. And if there's a vegetable you'd love us to cover in a future video, we want to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps us to keep producing contents like this. Thank you, and see you next time.